test at the airport is an antigen assay. It's based on what we call a fluorescent immunoassay. It's a point-of-care device. It takes 6 samples, which take about 15 minutes to come out. The sample that is taking is a nasopharyngeal swab. Now, as you heard from the FDA, this device and its reagents were assessed by the FDA. And on behalf of the COVID task force, I carried out an assessment of this device using samples that we had tested by PCR. So this device uses fresh nasopharyngeal samples. So we also conducted at 2 of our treatment centers another assessment using fresh samples. In conclusion, we found that the device is 100% specific. That is, when we look at samples that are declared as negative by PCR, these samples were also found to be negative for antigen presence for COVID-19. When we looked at sensitivity, the ability to pick up samples that were positive by PCR, the machine gave us a range between 90 to 95%. Now, this we deem to be satisfactory because the policy for the airport is that passengers who are arriving are supposed to have a negative PCR. So we expect that when we do the antigen at the airport, because it is 100% specific, we expect to find that there will be nobody coming in with a positive result. That is the basis for recommending the use of this antigen machine at the airport. Because it is faster than the PCR, that's why it has been referred to erroneously as a rapid device. The PCR takes about an hour and 30 minutes, 2 hours, when you load a sample into the machine. It's impossible to do PCR at any airport and get a result within less than 3 hours. That's why I think most of the data that you have for other airports is talking about sample taking and then the results made available later. With regards to the cost, I think it's very, very, very difficult to sit and estimate the cost. The cost of a test in a hospital, in a lab, is totally different from a cost that is offered as a service by a private provider in circumstances where he's expected to process. If you take a flight that has 300 people, you expect him to process them within 15, 20, 30 minutes. This means setting up multiple stations, multiple testing stations, having several staff in place. So the cost per test is not a cost of a reagent. If you take even the cost of the machines, let's take PCR. One PCR machine is about $50,000. In order to do the processing before you do the PCR, you can come up with an automatic RNA extraction machine that's about $40,000. Already you're looking at $100,000. Okay? If you're just looking at the machine setup just for PCR. So if you try to put that in multiples, okay, at an airport, you have at least 10 of them. So you multiply that by 100,000, you're already looking at $1 million. Okay? So I'm giving you an analogy between trying to set up a testing system to detect the virus itself and then using a faster method with the latest technology at a more reasonable price. So that's the system that we have in place.